Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is it. This is the final episode of Game of Thrones ever. We got 8 years, 8 seasons, 73 episodes, various deaths and battles, all leading up to this. Spoilers as they've been for all my previous episode reviews for this season. So if you haven't seen the episode yet, what have you been doing in your life? Because this is the only thing that's been mattering over the last sort of 6 weeks or so. So this is it. The final episode. What did I think? It was good. It's definitely split into 2 parts, I think, for me, this episode. There's the aftermath of what happened in the last episode, and then the conclusion to kind of the season and everything else. So I'll start with the first half. This is directly, almost instantaneously starts as the sort of the burning and the massacre have all ended from the previous episode. Tyrion's walking through King's Landing, seeing all the bodies and seeing the massacre and everything that's happened, with Dany just burning the entire city down. And I thought that was quite powerful. You kind of see the cruelty of her, because you don't really see her facial expression during the bells. Once she kind of takes off and starts burning, you kind of see her expression just as she takes off, and you don't see anything else past that. And you see Jon's reaction, and you just see the sort of stunnedness on their face. Like, there's not a lot of dialogue in the first almost like 5 to 6 minutes of the episode. Only until Jon comes across Grey Worm, who's executing the surviving members of the Lannister army on the orders of Dany. So he's really kind of on her side. He will do anything for her because he freed her. He introduced him to his love of his life with him a Sunday, but he then sees the Lannisters as the reason that she's dead. She kind of is, because Cersei was the one that ordered to have her head cut off. And yeah, they run into him. They have a small bit of dialogue. But even after Jon says, I'm going to talk to Dany, I'm going to try and reason with her, he's still executing, so Jon knows he's not going to talk him round. And yeah, we see sort of the armies all lined up, and you can kind of see the contrasting sort of figures of the Dothraki and the Unsullied, because the Dothraki are kind of running around on horses still, screaming and shouting and waving their swords around, celebrating, whereas the Unsullied are just lined up very, very sort of military-esque, not moving unless they're kind of almost prompted to, which was kind of like, it's good to see the kind of 2 different styles of the armies that she has. And then as Dany lands and she's kind of walking away, you see the dragon wings pop up behind her, because obviously Drogon's is about to take off. That's a really cool shot there of her walking through the wings. That's probably one of the most iconic shots of the series, let alone this episode. The direction of this episode is amazing. Some of the shots they use and everything, I really, really enjoyed. I thought it was really good directing in the episode. It was Benioff and Weiss actually directed the episodes themselves, the writers of the show. So that was a really cool shot. And she gives this really big sort of military-esque speech of defiance, and this is how I want to rule. This is just the first step. All the various things and stuff most sort of evil rulers would say. And Tyrion joins her, and she kind of makes note to him that, yeah, I know you free Jaime. Treason, I'm going to kill you. And he just doesn't care. Like, he says, I freed my brother, you slaughtered thousands, or something along those lines. So he's just given up. He's just, I've had enough. And then she kind of sees Jon, and there's a kind of weird look about him, and you can tell she doesn't trust him. I don't think she's ever would trust him, even how far we go on. And we have a really good scene with Jon and Tyrion, when Tyrion's been locked up. Once he's they take him away, they lock him up. They don't have a prison to put him in, because I assume they burned it down. So he's just in a room, and him and Jon had this really great dialogue. This kind of really shows where Peter Dinklage is probably the best actor on the show, and has been from the start, because when he gets to do these monologues and these speeches about philosophy and the way the world is and how the way the world should be, he is really good. He's on point. I think he's won an Emmy for nearly every season that there's been, maybe one apart from the first, maybe 2. But from then on, and you can see why. He's definitely by far the best actor on the show, and he kind of really showed that here as well. And I think Jon had the moment where he was trying to convince Jon, obviously, you need to kill Dany. It's only you that can do it. You're the only one that can probably get that close to her to kill her, because you're not going to get away with the dragon in the way. You're not going to get her on the battlefield. It needs to be something small. And Jon just not getting it. He's so loyal, and he just can't break his nobleness. He bent the knee. He's this man of honour, and he's died for it before. Obviously, he died at the Night's Watch. So he just can't. And I think it's when Tyrion mentions, what would Sansa think? And the idea of Dany, because I think Jon is happy to sacrifice himself for his own nobility. He already has done that. But the thought of his family being hurt and the thought of Sansa or Arya getting injured or dying because of this, I think that's when he turned. You don't really notice it that much, but just when he said that, I saw this kind of change in Jon's face, and I kind of like that from Kit Harington. He's not been the best actor, but in that moment he kind of had this little look about him as if that's when he moved, that's when he changed his mind, that's when he kind of thought, yeah, it's out of the two, although he is Targaryen, he is a Stark at heart, really. So that's where his loyalties would lie. Then we get the throne room scene where Daenerys first goes up to the Iron Throne. It's the first time she's seen it, because she's only heard stories about it from her father and her brother, and they kind of had this back and forth speech between the two of them. And Jon tries to reason with her, and she justifies what she's doing, but Jon's not buying it. I think he's trying one last-ditch effort to convince her that you need to pick a different path, and she's just like, no. So I think then and there he decides she's going to go. So they embrace, and then he stabs her and she dies. And this is the main problem I had with the episode as well as the season as a whole. It's just the rushness of it all. I still can't find a reason why they decided after season 6 they had 13 episodes to wrap up the entire thing. And I would have loved to have seen Dany have 2 or 3 episodes, at least one, of her as a really, really sort of cruel leader. Maybe watch her go off and burn other cities down and destroy more towns. But this, we kind of get like the last sort of half of the last episode, where you see her burn the place down. You don't really see her, like I said, you just see her on the dragon, and the dragon really burns the place down. And then this first half of this, when she kind of gives the speech and everything, and then that's it. Like, if you would have seen an episode or 2 of her really showing her sort of how cruel she can be, and how much she's changed and moved away from that sort of person who's killing bad people to liberate the good, to rather than just killing everybody. So I think it was right that Jon killed her. I think that's the way it needed to go, and that's just a small moment just between the two of them. I think that was right. Killing her on a battlefield, I don't think would have worked. But yeah, this is my main crux of the season and the episode. It just felt rushed. It just felt we could have done with an episode of her just really stretching out and just having that sort of really kind of you buying into how cruel she is. So that's a shame, but there we go. Then Drogon flies in. He tries to wake Dany up, not to no prevail because she's already dead, and then he burns the throne down. The sort of symbolism of power. I don't think Drogon really knows that he's a dragon overall. I think that he couldn't kill Jon because he knows Jon is Targaryen, and it's probably something within the dragons, they can't kill their own kind, so he couldn't kill Jon, so he just burnt the throne down. There's something to burn, and that kind of gets rid of that, and that kind of destroys the symbolism of power within the kingdom of Westeros. Then the episode kind of has this weird edit point. It kind of jumps 3-4 weeks down the line. They don't really kind of say, but the environment, everything changes because it's very bleak and very grey in the aftermath because all the ash is still falling, and then it's sunny and it's bright and it's a little bit more hopeful tone to the episode. And this is what I really liked. This is what I really liked about the episode, because this point they're kind of wrapping up everyone's little story arc, and I felt on this part they did it really, really well. If you would have told me that Bran Stark would be king, even maybe after episode 1, I would have probably stopped watching. I thought, this is stupid. But the justification they give for him becoming king and him ruling over the 7 kingdoms was spot on. And I think that it's right, and it's like, yeah, I kind of see where you're coming from, because he's sort of a similar sort of thing to Jon, where Jon was always a good leader because Jon never wanted power. And the show overall, kind of, anyone that's ever coveted power dies, and it corrupts them, because power corrupts absolutely. And where people who don't want power, like Jon, always seem to be good leaders, because then they're kind of forced into it and they're kind of just doing the right thing because it is the right thing to do. So the fact that he becomes king was justified. And like I said, if you would have told me before that, I probably wouldn't have believed you. But in the episode, in the moment, in the show, it works. Everyone's on point here. There was a really, really nice scene. Actually, before that, there was a really good scene where Tyrion is now the hand of the king, and he's got Bronn, and he's got Davos, and Brienne's there, and Sam's the Grand Maester. I do love that Bronn of the Blackwater is now Master of Coin, and the first thing he wants to do is build more brothels. That is on point for his character. You talk about character development and arcs, he doesn't break. That is exactly the first thing he would think of. And then there was a really nice scene because it's that sort of, they're all kind of new in their roles, but it's really hopeful, and it's like really nice sort of finishes to a lot of those sort of characters, and then we get a really nice touching scene for all the Starks to come together to say goodbye to each other, really, because the stuff that those guys have been through, everything Jon's been through, Sansa, Arya, Bran, everything around the Red Wedding as well. It just was really nice to have those four have a nice closing moment to kind of go on their journeys and live their lives free from this kind of political Game of Thrones, and the fact that the Starks ended up kind of ruling everything, because some of the low points that they have really suffered was really fitting, and I think that was a nice end to the show, amongst all a lot of the other sort of controversies that have gone on for this season. So obviously the controversies main around season 8 has been the sort of pacing and some of the decisions around certain characters, but I think overall it's still one of the great shows ever, really. The event that it's caused, especially when this season was coming out, that's literally the whole world stopped to watch every episode as it goes. And as many people have been disappointed with this season, and I see why, that there are criticisms. I didn't love it. I thought it was really good, and I feel the last sort of half of this episode really kind of wrapped it up nicely. There's definitely some things I would have liked to have done differently. 100% would have preferred more episodes, but that's just when you wanted more Game of Thrones, because it's such a good show. So I'm sad to see it go. I think it will go down as one of the best of all time, even though this season has been sort of dividing amongst most people. I think in years to come, when you just watch the whole thing from start to finish on a DVD box set or Blu-ray or whatever it would be, I think you would really appreciate it, even in the sort of faster moments of these last two seasons. It's one of the best. Hopefully it goes down as that. I hope this season doesn't tarnish too many things for people. Anyway, so our watch has now ended. So thanks very much for sticking around for all these episode reviews. I will see you next time. Take care.